Welcome back to Vectorworks 2013. This is the Design 2A series with James Russell. This is episode 4D, and it relates to the end of episode 2A, where we decided to do our 36 objects task. In that we decided to do a series of small 3D objects constructed from a series of drawings that I'd handed out at the end of that class. So in this episode we're going to look at number 21 through 36, and I'm going to try and squeeze them all into one episode. There are quite a few tricky ones throughout here. I can see at least 3 or 4 that I'm going to have to slow down for. But what I'm going to do now is just quickly set up my layers, and the moment I've done that I'll come back and do 21 with you. Okay, so we've got our layers set up. Just a friendly reminder, I'm recording in the middle of a thunderstorm at the moment, so if you hear any thunder or lightning, it's not my fault, it's just happening. So we're looking at number 21, and I'll try and add a link to the description where you can get some images that go along with it, or you can have a look at the end of episode 2A, which is about 8 or 9 episodes before this, I think. So we're looking at a series of objects here. They're starting to become rather manufactured or material objects that you might find in machine parts or fittings for lamps and that kind of thing. So this one is an ideal description of that, and something that you might actually have to construct in the future for a custom build. So I'm going to start off with this one. I'm going to draw this as if it was top down and then just rotate the whole object, because that works quite easy in my mind. So I'm actually going to turn this whole object 90 degrees at the end. So I'm going to start this off by grabbing our rounded rectangle tool. I'm going to set some dimensions in here. Oh, they're already set for me, but I wanted to write 20 and 20 in here anyway, which is good for me. This is just the diameter across of each of the corners, as you can see here, corner diameters. So that means that if I want a radial corner of 10 millimeters, I actually need to make it 20 to cover the whole diameter as if it was a circle inside there. Just going to start drawing this. We've got change in X and Y here. I've accidentally pressed a button, so I'm going to start drawing that again. There we go. Pressing tab, I can get across once again into my change in X and change in Y. I'm counting this on my second screen now, and we've got 60 across, and since we're already heading in the negative direction, I'm going to do negative 80. That's why having additional monitors is so handy. I can record on one at the moment, do my Vectorworks in the middle one, and I'm also looking at a reference image of this all at the same time. So I'm going to pop this here with a center mark of 0 and 0, just so it's nicely aligned on our page. I've done that here in the object info, and there we go. You can see that corner diameter just by looking at the ruler is actually 10 millimeters, which is perfect. Now there are some circles in those corners there, but I'm going to focus on them in a second. What I want to do first is the primary cylinder that's popping out of the middle of this object. And what you'll notice is that it looks to me as though it's probably been welded to this plate that's sitting behind it. And that's quite a tricky thing to do in Vectorworks, that curve all the way around, giving it the illusion of that weld. There's 2 ways that you could approach this. The first way is that you could do a sweep with a curved object. Just to give you an example of what your sweep object might look like, it would be a square of some variety, probably like this, with a circle intersecting into it. So you'd do a circle, and our circle would have a diameter of that. And then you'd cut those 2 objects away from each other, and your sweep object would look like this, which would give you that semicircular object all the way around. Instead, what I'm going to do is a slightly different approach. So what I'm going to do here is grab a regular rectangle. I'm just going to draw this as a trace over the top here, like this. And that's going to be extruded to the depth of our cylinder. So our cylinder is, I'm just counting now, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it looks like it's 40 deep for me, so I'm going to extrude that to 40. And at the same time, because I don't like shifting moves when I have to, I hold down Control, Alt and M for me, and I'm going to give this a Z offset of, what was our previous object? We haven't extruded that yet, but it's going to be a thing of 20. So if I also grab my underneath object, like so, and extrude that to 20, you'll notice that I've pre-moved my box up 40 just by doing that simple move. I just like to sit there in top plan view, and if I know all the maths in my head, I can just Control Alt M, move that, Control Alt M, move that. And when you pop it into a side or a isometric view, things are already moved around for you, and it's a lot simpler. But I also need to make another object inside here, and this is where it becomes a little bit tricky. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this object, the box that we've made on top. So I've copied that and I'm pasting that in place with Control Alt V for me. So I've now got 2 boxes on top of each other sitting there. what I'm going to do is draw our cylinder, which has a radius of 20, overall diameter of 40. So in here, type in a 20 for that length. That's the correct sizing there. Then what I need to do is extrude that out, and that's extruding to the same amount as before, 40 for us into there. And then I'm going to cut that away from one of our boxes. So grabbing both of those, I'm right clicking, choosing subtract solids, cutting away from the red object and hitting OK. So now what I've got here, and just to break these up, I've got one which has the hole cut out of it and one that doesn't. Now I've made a mistake there, I haven't raised that cylinder up, just going back in time to when there are two of those, and I'm just going to move that up by 20, so now they're correct. Grab that one, do a subtraction, hit OK. So now I've got two objects sitting here. I've got the one that has the hole cut out and the one that doesn't have the hole cut out. I'm going to use the fillet edge tool on the one that we've cut the cylinder out of. I'm going to select this lower edge here, the rim of that circle at the bottom. I'm going to change the constant radius to 5, because according to my drawing it looks like it only takes up half a square, which is 5 for me. Got that selected, I'm going to hit the tick, and what you'll notice is it puts this in, and this in 3D, just to pull this object away and have a look at it just in a rendered mode so you understand. That's our cylinder on top there, but if you have a look at this object here from underneath, you'll notice that it's got that really nice rounded edge on the interior of it. See how it just kind of slants in there as though that's been cut all the way out. That's because we've filleted all the way through it. So what I'm going to do is put that back into place, and I'm now going to subtract one object from the other. So I've got both my objects selected here, and I'm going to right click and choose subtract solids. Now it might be difficult for some people to understand which object is the one that I want to cut into. I want to cut into the one that doesn't have the circle cut through it already. So what we're doing is cutting, and I'm going to swap to the other object temporarily. I'm going to cut all of this mass here, so everything that isn't included inside this circle here and with that little edge cut out of it. So all of this mass I'm going to cut away from the original box, which is this one. So it's a box, and I'm cutting away all of this outside area here. When I do this motion, you'll understand. So I'm cutting into the one that doesn't have the circle cut into it. That means the remainder is going to be this area here. Okay, it's going to be the inverse of the cylinder that we had before. So to render that out using Control-Shift-G, you'll see it's actually this, a cylinder which we'd cut out previously with that filleted edge all the way around it. If you just have a look, you can see it's nice and smooth, has that slant to it as though it's been welded to that bottom plate. Okay, so I did a double cut then in the 3D world, just the same as we would with some of our circles and squares sometimes when we're doing corners, except this time I wanted that whole 3D mass to be cut away from that box. Watch that over again, and if you don't understand, there's plenty of examples coming up. There's at least 4 or 5 that I can see that I'm going to have to do the exact same process on, so just have a look at how I do those if you're unsure. Now from there it's really easy, it's just a couple of cuts. So going back here into a top view, I can see that we've got one circle with a 10 radius there, so I'm just going to do that quickly now. Out there, press tab, get a 10 on that. Looks like it's got a little notch cut out of it as well, so I'm just going to do that quickly now. I'll probably just mix it up and use a center outwards mode on this, and I think it's probably a 5 out in the X and a negative 2.5 at a guess on that notch. Once again, it doesn't have to be exact, it's just for the purpose of the exercise. I'm going to extrude that out to the overall height of 60, because I know that's how tall my object is, like that. I'm going to grab all of this. Now this hasn't been added yet, which it will be eventually, so we'll do that first. The big cylinder there with the curve in it and this bottom plate, I'm going to add those together so they're one. Grabbing that keyhole kind of object, grabbing all of that and subtracting. I don't want to subtract the keyhole because that would end up with nothing, so I want to do that. And there we go. If you have a look at that in 3D, you can see we've got that nice keyhole cut into it. And from there, of course, it's just 4 circles in the corners with extrudes. So just placing this into here. Looks like it's got a radius of 5, which is correct, giving it an overall diameter of 10. That's probably just a mirror across there. Grabbing both of those, mirror tool again. See how I just quickly like to do mirrors across like that. Extruding both of those out to 20, which puts them all like this. Grabbing all of the objects, right click subtract. It's a multi-cut going on here, so we're cutting all of these away from this object, hitting OK, and what you end up with is this. The last step, of course, as I said, I was drawing this in a top plan and then rotating it 90 degrees. So I'm going to look at it in this view. select my object. I'm just going to tap Control L, which rotates that, and then I'm going to bring that up to the 0 plane, of course, like so. So that's the object we've ended up with, which is pretty darn close to the other one, I have to say. I'm going to go ahead and do 22, 23, 24, 25, and I'll come back and do 26 with you. So that's my plan. I'll see you soon.
It comes and it goes like a chill to my bones when I lay awake at night.
so I just thought I'd slow things down for number 26, just you know, in case you're having a little bit of trouble following along. I can run through this one together with you, and just demonstrate once again how I go through things. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I've got a 6 by 8 here. Double clicking the rectangle tool, doing a width of 80 and a height of 60. Obviously placing that with the center on the 0, 0. There we go. Works well for even numbers, doesn't work so well for odd numbers. Sometimes it's better off placing the corner at the 0, 0 marker, but it's up to you on your preference and style of drawing. Okay, so what we've got here is a rectangle as the base. It also needs the corner cut out of it. I'm going to do that with a double cut because I prefer double cuts over using the fillet tool. It's just a preference thing for me. So I'm just going to count the corner here. Looks like we've got a diameter of 20. So in here, putting 20 in, like that. I'm going to grab my cursor tool and move this using my Control M. I'm doing an X offset of 20 and a Y offset of 20, which will place that, as you can see, along that edge there. Now the reason I call it a double cut, and some people have asked me that, is because it's actually just two cuts that you do in one. So here I've got the circle. I'm going to bring that to the front. So I do one cut, the circle out of that, right click, click the surface, get rid of the circle, and then the second cut is this object away from this one. Before I do that, I'm actually going to mirror it just to save my own time. So now I'm actually going to do a double cut out of this, click the surface. Both of these will remain selected, but when I delete them you'll notice that the edges are gone. Next part, we need a circle in there, so I'm just going to draw a circle, any old circle in this corner. Counting it, it's got a radius of 10, so I'm going to throw 10 into here. I'm going to grab this, and I don't know if it will snap. There we go, we have got a snap. So that's automatically snapped, knowing that that's part of a circle inside of there. Going to mirror that straight across the axes before I cut it away. 1, 2, 3, 3 objects selected. Clip the surface, hit delete, there we go. So at this point here I can extrude this out, noticing that, as with most of these, it has a height of 10. And so I've ended up with this object here in final quality. I sometimes give final quality, and notice this with the other ones. That's the OpenGL software there, and it renders the circles a little bit kind of nasty just to save on time. It's great mode because the OpenGL mode, as you'll discover with 5A, you can rotate around when you're in it. But sometimes I do put it into final just to clean up those circles around the edges there. Now that we've got that, going back here into a top plan view, I need another rectangle along this back line here. It's 80 wide and it's negative 10, and that has an extrusion height. Just going to count it out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 60 high from the ground plane. So I've automatically done that. It's sitting there across that back line, and I'm going to add both of these together. Looking at that in a front view, because I now want to take the corners away, I'm going to approach this slightly differently. What I'm actually going to do is grab my rounded rectangle tool, draw from here, corner to corner, and down. Now I'm going to count this rounded rectangle out first. 1, 2, 3. It looks like it's 40 high to me. So that means negative 40 in here. Now change in Y. And we end up with that. Now what it also has, this from my previous thing that I was drawing, has a diameter of 20. This actually needs a diameter of 40 in this case for both of those. You can see we've got that nice rounded corner there. Height of 40, 40 diameter, 40 diameter. So across from here to here makes a circle with one side of 40. So that's going to be fine. I'm also going to copy that, paste it in place. I'm going to change the diameters of each of these to 20 and 20. Because it's on symmetrical mode, I obviously don't have to do both. It's done that for me. And I'm going to subtract the width. I'm going to take 20 away from that, leaving me with 60 width. And I'm going to subtract 20 from the height as well. As you can see, if you have a look at the reference image, which hopefully you've got open next to you or in the background somewhere, you can see what I'm starting to develop here. So, what am I going to do from here? It's a very good question. I'm going to first do a cut using this object. So I'm going to go across here and down to here. Move that to the back with Control B for me, Apple B for you guys on a Mac. And I'm first going to make this clip here. What I should be left with is two corners. I'll see if I can grab them. There they are there. I'm going to extrude those out first, and I'm going to give them an extrusion value of 60. Sure, sounds great. And when I have a look at that in the 3D view, even though I've got these floating on top, you can also see that these pieces here, looking in a side view, if I drag those back, Go back into this view and clip them away from here. Subtracting solids. You can see I've just rounded out those corners. It'll make a lot more sense when I do this second section. And you might wonder why, if you're moving around, those haven't moved on your screen. It's because I've got these set to screen plane. Just a preference thing for now. So I can extrude this one out. It looks like it has an extrusion of 10 as well. And the question might be left with this drawing, does this go through all the way or does it not? I'm going to choose in my drawing that it does go all the way, so I'm going to give an extrusion of 20. Back up here in a top plan view, I'm going to grab this from its corner here and snap it into place. And then grab this here, which is our piece that we've extruded all the way through. I'm going to plonk it here and increase it slightly. And now if I have a look in the isometric view here, and I might just render that quickly so everyone can see. So I've got, this is the backboard piece here, I've got this new oval that I've made here, and this is the piece that cuts all the way through. So the logical way that I'd add all this together is this piece and this piece here, add those together first, and then clip this piece away from the two of them, just saving time. And I obviously want to change that, and OK, and there we go. That looks pretty much like our model number 26. Having a look here, I always just have a look around to make sure I haven't missed any bits. So that's pretty good there. I'm going to now do 27, 28. I will come back and see you for 29, okay? So I'll see you soon. Okay, so now we're going to do number 29 together, which in my opinion is probably the hardest one out of this series, I think, excluding maybe 34, which just involves a loft, but it's not too bad. So, looking at 29, how are we going to approach this? So, I'm going to start off with a rectangle, which is just going to be our general bounding. It's got a width of 50 and a height of 60. That's our general outline there. Over the top of that, I'm going to do two more pieces. Do a negative 10 on that, and a 10 on that as well. Okay, so there our general outline there. What I'm going to do is add them together. Doing this, add surface, I'm going to extrude those straight out. Now they've got an extrusion height of 80, and that's our general shape there. I'm going to delete this rectangle now. So as you can see, that's kind of our perimeter that we're going to work within. Next I'm going to focus on the middle area, which involves a circle and some rectangles. Now there are two ways to do this, as you'd similarly see in, I think it was 24, just let me check which number was previous to this. It was 21. In 21, if you watched 21, which is about 5 minutes ago if you've been watching this whole video, in 21 we did that cylinder shape and we did a fillet out from one side of that, then subtracted it. That's one way you could do this one. You could make a rectangular prism, fillet out all the sides, and then cut it away from this object. That's one way. I'm going to show you a second way here, which will land us in an imperfection, but is much quicker and much less painful on your brain. So we're going to do this. We're going to grab our circle tool as well. We're going to make a circle in this corner here, which has a radius of 30, which is a bit strange. Sorry, it's got a radius of 15, a diameter of 30. I'm going to grab that now and move it in the positive direction, 15, negative 15 across, positive 15 up, which will land it so that it fits perfectly into that corner. I'm going to do a sneaky double cut in here, so move that to the front, grab both of these, right click, clip the surface, going to keep the circle, grab this new piece that I've created, clip that away from the square. So that's looking pretty good. I'm also going to make this circle in here, which at a guess will have a radius of 7.5. Something like that. I'm going to extrude this piece out here 10. I'm going to extrude this outer circle here by 20, and I'm going to extrude the inner one arbitrarily because it's a cutting piece out to 50. So having a look at this in a side view now, I'm going to move this with the Control M. It's going to have a Z offset of 0, but it's going to move up 35. I'll explain the reasoning for that in a moment. I'm going to move this piece here up 30, and I'm going to move this up just arbitrarily 20. What I've ended up with here, and if you have a look at your drawing for number 29, you'll notice that this here, from here to the base of this, is 30. To the midpoint of the central piece though, the actual connected piece, is 40, so therefore I raised that up 35 to get the base in line there. Obviously it's sitting on the 0 line when it's created. So that's the reasoning for that. From this point on we go this piece here and the circle, adding those together and then subtracting the cylinder, the cutting piece, away from those, clicking here to change the object and hit OK. So now we end up with this. As I was saying, we're going to choose the easier method. It is slightly imperfect, and I'll show you why that is in a moment so you can understand. But I'm going to give this a 5 across here, and I'm going to do this -5 here. Created a small box, grabbing my circle tool, working on the radius mode. I'm going to cut out through here, grabbing both those objects and doing a clip surface. Hitting delete, we end up with this. When I extrude this out to a height of 90 or 80? 80. My mistake. Throw an 80 in there. What we end up with is that nice little curved shape that we can then add to our current collection of objects. But before I add it, I'm going to copy it. I'm going to paste it in place, and I'm going to rotate it left. So now what have we ended up with? We've ended up with a shape that looks like that, also intersecting. You can see the curve, same curve, I've just rotated it. What do I do with that from that point on? I'll grab this corner here and I'll throw it into this point here. I'll also grab my mirror tool, mirror it across. So now, if we have a look here, we've ended up with 2 of these shapes. From this point here, what can I do? I could first grab each of these and drag them inwards to there, even though it will affect my next move. That's just fine. I will grab both of those objects there, and not including this one here, and I will copy them, paste them in place, rotate them left. Going to throw them both there, give them an extrusion of 50, and there we go. So if you have a look at this wireframe here, you can see we've ended up with 1 piece, 2 piece, 3 pieces in each side. I don't care about this overlap because it gets consumed by this piece anyway. What is the disadvantage of this though? Well, these 3 corners that are all intersecting here won't create a perfect sphere. They will in fact create something else. It does have a name and I'll have to look it up later on. If we had done that though and filleted all 3 edges from a prism at the same time, we would have ended up with a perfect corner, a spherical corner. How could you get around that? You could either A, accept it, which is what I'm going to do in this case, and know that I could have done it differently. You could B, create a sphere and cut it away from a cube, then add that to that general mass. Or you could C, do the other option, which is to create some sort of rectangular prism with a perfect corner. So, what are we going to do from here? I'm going to select all of those, add them together. There we go, and just so you can have a look at the rendered result of that, that's the final quality, and you can see that dimple mark there, which should be a perfect sphere, is in fact got those 3 lines with all 3 of those pieces intersected. Moving away from that though, I'm going to do the pieces from this side now. We've got some curved edges going on, so make a circle here. It has a radius of 20. Using the move command, I'm going to move that -20 and down 20, which puts us into that corner there. Going to grab my square tool, once again doing a double cut on this corner here. Move that to the back, grab both of those pieces, clip the surface, delete that. Grabbing our circle tool here, 1, 2, using my smart points to line that up there. This has got a radius of 10, throw that in, there we go. Grabbing both of those, my mirror tool, mirror that across to here. All 3 of these pieces, extrude them all together. To give them an extrusion, doesn't really matter. I'm going to choose 25. and I'm going to ungroup them. The reason I'm ungrouping them is because I actually want to save these two pieces here. So I'm going to copy those, and you'll see why in a second. I'm going to grab all of these pieces here, move them so that they intersect that wall piece, and as you can see here in the isometric view, all four of those are selected. Holding down Shift and grabbing my last piece, subtract. The larger object is currently selected. Hitting OK, and we've cut all of those out at the same time. Now the reason I wanted to keep those excellent corner pieces that I'd made is because I want to use them again. I've just done rotate left 3 times because rotate right is too hard to remember in my opinion, even though the command for it is Control-Shift-R. Control-L is rotate left, which I just find easier to press 3 times than remembering Control-R. Placing that into there, I've just nudged that across, and now I'm going to do exactly the same thing on this side. All of those pieces subtracted from there. Okay, there we go. The remaining thing is to put those dimpled shapes in, which we're going to do. How are we going to do that? We're going to look at it in this mode here. Yes, that is correct. From here I'm going to grab my circle tool, just choose an arbitrary point here that I can remember, probably not that one, it's going to be this one here. Circle has a diameter of 20, which gives us a radius of 10. Using my move command, I'm going to move that across 1, 2, 3, 30 in the negative x, and it needs to move down one place, which is negative 10. Lands us over there. To draw our square here, up and over, it's a cutting piece, so it doesn't really matter how big it is. Adding those together, extruding them out, extrusion of negative 25, mirroring them across this plane here, grabbing both of those, looking at it in a plan view, dragging this across so it intersects with the wall, going back to an isometric view, grabbing all 3 pieces, right click, subtract solids, hitting OK. There, ladies and gentlemen, is our completed object, which is pretty darn close, I think. Obviously I could have fixed up that corner inside there, but I'm quite happy with that result and would call it done for 29. Now I think you've got the techniques. I'm going to do 30, 31, 32, 33. I will come back to 34 just to give you another quick session on lofting, and then I'll smash out 35. See you soon.
De la planète, rien ne s'arrête, cet effet qui ne sert à rien. Espèce exterminée, du côté faune où flore éteinte à jamais, ou sur la voie de la mort, paradis étouffé, goudron, béton, pognon, tympan déchiré, par les cris, les klaxons, liquide dans la jolie galère, délire pour jouer de la terre, pleurniche de l'affrement que d'air nappe qui capte sur la misère, campette sur l'eau claire des rivières, mais de le tout jusqu'au bord de mer, galop, canopée, conifère, sulfate la dernière des clairières. L'atmosphère mutilée par des trous du cantienne, une couche, espèce évoluée. Homo sapiens ignore toute la vérité sur la loi du plus fort à force de cracher sur son beau trésor, ose se lamenter sur son propre sort. Licoté dans la jolie galère, délire pour jouer de la terre, pleurniche de l'affrement que d'air nappe qui capte sur la misère, campagne sur l'eau claire des rivières, mais tout jusqu'au bord de mer, galop, canopée, conifère, sulfate la dernière des clairières. La fonte des glaciers, tristement provoquée par des dégénérés givrés espèce d'enfoiré. La nature t'implore d'enfin l'épargner. De tes délires trop gore vas-tu réaliser que ce n'est pas qu'un décor avant de te noyer dans tes remords. Licoté dans la jolie galère, délire pour jouer de la terre, purge de l'affreux manque d'air, navigable sur la misère. Gambelle sur l'eau claire des rivières, bête de tout jusqu'au bord de mer, galop, canapé, conifère, sulfate et la dernière des clairières. Licoté dans la jolie galère, délire pour jouer de la terre, purge de l'affreux manque d'air, navigable sur la misère. Gambelle sur l'eau claire des rivières, bête de tout jusqu'au bord de mer, galop, canapé, conifère, sulfate et la dernière des clairières.
Well, that one was a little bit trickier than I thought, the old 33. It's got a hidden slope inside there, I believe. If you've come to the same conclusion as I have, then please let me know. It's a bit deceptive from the picture, but until you place all the objects in, you realise there must be a slope in there of 10. Anyway, that's my best guesstimate, and I think even I might have still been wrong on that. Let me just go back in time here and check that. There's that sneaky slope isn't actually to the back of that object, as I've drawn it there. Just going back in time here to check that. I believe it might actually be just to here. Yes, that's quite sneaky. That's better. So that's a bit of a tricky one, the old hidden slope inside the isometric drawing. We're going to now move on and look at 34. So swapping layers here, got quite a few design layers. We're going to start off, same as always, drawing our rectangle. Just going to do a count here. So the coordinates are actually correct here, 10 by 6. I just checked them then. Hitting OK. There we go. So, where to begin with this one? I'm going to start off with the bottom surface, and it appears it's 2 by 3 across there. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to draw across here, minus 20. There we go, that point there out to there, drawing with my rotated rectangle tool across to that center point there. I'm going to do one this way as well, so I don't have to mirror, like so. So cut that, cut that, cut that, away from that, clip the surface, delete, delete, delete. That's our base object there. What am I going to do from here? I'm going to loft upwards. Okay, so I'm actually going to just copy this object here. I'm going to paste it in place. I'm going to move it backwards 20 in the X direction, so we end up with this shape here. Also going to cut the tail off it because we don't need that part there, so that's 20 across in that direction. Left click across to here, click again, cut those two away from each other, clip surface, hit delete. So I've got these two pieces. Now to give you another quick lesson on lofting, as you will have seen in 2 of the previous videos, the first thing you need to do is make these into NURBS. So convert down here into convert to NURBS. They'll be grouped together now, so I'm going to ungroup those. Using my math, and I'm still in my top plan view, I'm going to Control Alt M for me. It'll be Apple something M for you guys on a Mac. Just check your top window. It's got a raise of 30 in it, so down to the Z component. 30 in there, hit OK. What you'll notice here in my isometric is they're floating above each other. There's one of them, the other one hidden down here on this baseline. So we want to make that slant there happen. Back in my isometric view now. I'm going to grab my loft surface command down here from my 3D toolset. Going to choose one of these objects, making sure we select the same corner for both of those. See how I've chosen this corner or this corner? I could have chosen the point and the point. That there is the starting reference point. Now, as long as these two objects have the same amount of corners, everything should go as planned. It'll say this corner matches to this one to this one, this one to this one, this one to this one, and this one to this one. Giant game of join the dots. Making sure we're on the first lofting rail mode though, there with no rail selected. These are just 2 profile curves. Hitting OK. It says, yep, I can do this. Looks all good. I'm going to click the preview button to make sure. There it is. I could have checked ruled, but in this instance it's going to be ruled anyway. I want to create a solid. Tick that box as well, so it's not hollow on the inside. We don't want these to be surfaces. Hitting OK. and there's our object. Do I want to back up? May as well. So once you've done that part there, which is the tricky part, everything else is straightforward and easy. So we're going to look at this in a front view. I'm going to cut that back section out of it, which is 20 by 10. So across here, tab 20, negative 10 in there. Because I'm still on that other rectangle mode, it's instead actually going to just be 20 across there. Click and downwards 20. Going to extrude that straight out, give an extrusion, arbitrary number 60 sounds good. I can overshoot it though and go to 80. Jumping back up here into a top view, grabbing this piece and sliding it into there and subtracting it from the overall object. That's the base part done. Now, where are we going from here? We've got another object, which I probably should have kept out of the rectangle for, but that's okay. The overall point of that object, we've got 40 plus 20 is 60, so 60 across in here. That's to the point across to this side here. I've accidentally misclicked on that, so I'll just go in here and grab my handles and relocate that to an edge. Same thing as before though, grabbing another rectangle. This is just a trace rectangle, minus 20 in there, hitting enter twice, getting that out to there, across to the midpoint, out something like this, X, going to grab my mirror tool, mirroring that across the surface, all three of these selected, clip the surface, delete, delete, delete. That's our object there. Now I'm going to raise that up. How many do I need to raise it up? It needs to be raised up 30, looking at my additional screen. Extrusion value of 30, we've ended up with this piece here, Control Alt M, Z offset of 30, hit OK, that's been moved up to the correct position now. Looking at that back in this view, doing the same thing as I did just before, going to put in a Y value of 10 into here, double tapping enter, dragging that out because it's a cutting piece, it doesn't matter, extrude that out, distance of 80. Going back up here, plan view, grabbing X, moving this into position, grabbing the newly created piece which is this one, right click, subtract solids, selected that one, hit enter. Looking at that back in our isometric, it looks good. The last remaining thing to do is to put that circle all the way through. Where does that circle land? It's going to be on the midpoint here somewhere. I'm drawing it out. It's got a diameter of 20, radius of 10 in there. Going to move that now. How far in has it moved? It's moved in 20 is the middle of the circle. 20 offset into there. Extrude that out. Overall height we know is 60, 80 is going to overshoot it fine, don't even have to move views. Firstly want to add this one and this one together, right click, add solids, selecting all of those which should now be two objects up here in our top right hand corner. Right click, subtract solids from the big one, hitting OK, that should be cut all the way through, throwing that into a final quality render to have a look at, and there we go. I think that's pretty much the shape there. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. That was a quick one to run through. Hopefully you guys are keeping up by now and know what's going on. I'm going to power ahead and do 35, chuck a little bit of audio over the top, and then I'll come for a wrap up. So there we have it, ladies and gents. I thought there were 36 of these, but apparently there's only 35 on these sheets. That one wasn't too bad overall, and there's been quite a few good ones inside here. If you've managed to get all the way through these, and especially by yourself, that's really impressive. Hopefully now that I've completed these, you can go through, have a look at some of the ones that you mightn't have got. But if you can complete all of these principles, then you can pretty much build just about anything, and hopefully you can see through all of this that all of the things that we generally create are just made out of circles and rectangles in various different ways. It's all about making sure you can use them, utilize your tools properly, and overall this set of exercises is great for just exploring how you can use the functionality of Vectorworks and any other drafting package, in fact, that implements this kind of adding and subtracting set of tools. hopefully you've got all of these now. This is episode 4D. The next episode will in fact be 5A, unlike what I said in the previous video, which is rendering. So good luck with that. Hopefully you can use these tools effectively, and I will see you soon.